My siblings forged a will to cut me out, so I used the hidden nanny cam footage from the lawyer's office to... The grief felt like a physical weight, a heavy, suffocating blanket that made every movement slow and painful. My mother's funeral had been a blur of somber faces and murmured condolences, a tribute to a woman who had been the unwavering heart of our family. In the days that followed, my older brother, Mark, and my sister, Jessica, seemed oddly efficient, their grief appearing to manifest as a flurry of administrative tasks. They called it a family meeting, a phrase that should have felt comforting, but instead carried a chilling, formal tone. We gathered in the living room of our childhood home, a space still saturated with our mother's presence, her favorite Afghan draped over her chair, the faint scent of her lavender perfume lingering in the air. Mark, ever the officious one, sat in our father's old armchair as if holding court. Jessica perched on the sofa arm, her posture rigid. A man I didn't recognize, sleek and severe in a tailored suit, stood by the fireplace. He was introduced as their lawyer, Mr. Sterling. With a grimace of faux sympathy, he opened his briefcase and produced a document. "This is your mother's last will and testament," he announced, his voice devoid of warmth. "Dated just 2 months prior." As he read the terms, the room seemed to tilt on its axis. The multi-million-dollar estate, the family home, the investment portfolios, all of it was split evenly between Mark and Jessica. My inheritance was reduced to a single item, a dusty old family Bible. The words were brutally code, stipulating that I had been a perpetual disappointment and was thus undeserving of any meaningful share. A cold numbness spread through me, followed by a surge of hot, disbelieving rage. This was not my mother, the woman who had comforted me after every failed exam, who had secretly helped me with my first mortgage payment, who had told me she was proud of the person I had become. This woman would never have written such venomous, unfair words. Her own signature on the document looked shaky, unfamiliar, a weak imitation of her usually strong, flowing script. "This is a forgery," I stated, my voice trembling not with grief now, but with fury. "Mom would never do this." Mark sighed, a performance of weary exasperation. "See? This is exactly the kind of drama she wanted to avoid." Jessica nodded, pulling a piece of paper from her purse. It was a notarized affidavit from a woman named Elena, who had been Mom's part-time home health aide during her final weeks. The affidavit claimed that Mom had confided in her, calling me a financial drain and a deep disappointment, and had expressed her explicit wish to disinherit me. It was their knockout punch. Outraged but legally outgunned, I felt the fight drain out of me, replaced by a profound sense of betrayal. They had weaponized my mother's final days against me. I left the house that day feeling hollowed out, the world seeming gray and hostile. But as I drove away, a memory surfaced, sharp and clear. Years ago, after our father passed, my mother had become wary of people's intentions. She had given me a small, discreet nanny cam disguised as a modern digital clock. "For safety, darling, just in case I ever need you to check on things," she had said. I had placed it on the bookshelf in her home office, the room where she handled all her important paperwork and met with her real lawyer, a kind older woman named Mrs. Gable. I had set it up, forgotten about it, and never once checked the footage. With a newfound desperate purpose, I turned my car around. I waited until I saw Mark and Jessica leave, then used my key, a key they hadn't gotten around to changing yet, to let myself back into the silent, empty house. It felt like a violation, but so had their meeting. There it was, on the bookshelf, covered in a thin layer of dust, looking like any other innocuous clock. I unplugged it, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped it. At my kitchen table, I connected the camera to my laptop and accessed the stored files. My heart hammered against my ribs as I scrolled through dates, my stomach churning with a mixture of hope and dread. I found the file from the date on the will. I took a deep breath and pressed play. The footage was crystal clear. The scene it showed was not my mother signing a document. It was Mark, Jessica, and their lawyer, Mr. Sterling. My mother was nowhere to be seen. Mark was holding a signature stamp, the kind used for official documents. He pressed it firmly onto a piece of paper. Jessica was hovering, whispering instructions. A little more to the left. It has to look natural. Mr. Sterling, the lawyer, watched them, his arms crossed. "Remember," he said, his voice a calm, coaching murmur, "the key is a slight tremor. The notary will expect it, given her reported illness. Make it look authentic." The audio was damning. My sister let out an exasperated sigh. "This is taking too long. I have a hair appointment." My brother chuckled, a cold, ugly sound. "Relax. She'll never know. We'll just say the golden child finally fell from grace. Everyone will believe it." They were so confident, so utterly assured of their victory, that they had spoken freely, sealing their fate with their own words. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't call them to confront them. A cold, focused calm settled over me. I made several copies of the video, storing them in different cloud accounts and on a physical hard drive. Then I went straight to the police and then to the district attorney's office. I showed them the footage. The look on the detective's face shifted from professional neutrality to grim determination. They planned their move. A week later, we were back in the same living room for the formal reading of the will. Mr. Sterling was there again, preparing to make the distribution official. Mark and Jessica were practically vibrating with smug triumph, already discussing which paintings they would take. Just as Mr. Sterling cleared his throat to begin, there was a firm knock on the door. 2 police officers and a plainclothes detective from the DA's office entered the room. The color drained from Mark and Jessica's faces. Mr. Sterling's professional composure cracked. The arrest was swift and humiliating. They were read their rights in front of their spouses, their children, and me. The charges were listed: conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and attempted grand larceny. Their masks of righteous indignation crumbled into pure, unadulterated panic. The judge, upon reviewing the footage, was livid. He not only immediately threw out the fraudulent will, but he also took the extraordinary step of enforcing the no contest clause that was present in my mother's actual, legally binding last will, the one she had signed with Mrs. Gable years earlier, which left everything equally to the 3 of us. Their malicious actions triggered the clause. By attempting to subvert her true wishes, they forfeited their entire inheritance. The estate, in its entirety, passed to me alone. The poetic justice was absolute. I stood in that same living room, now completely silent, save for the retreating sirens, the legal documents in my hand. I didn't want their blood money. I didn't want the house filled with such ugly memories. I sold the property and all its contents, and then I donated every single penny to the Silver Shield Charity for Elderly Fraud Victims, the very organization my mother had volunteered for and loved for over a decade. I made the donation in her name, ensuring her legacy was one of protection and kindness. My siblings accepted a plea deal to avoid a lengthy trial. They received probation, community service, and a permanent criminal record. But their true punishment was far worse. They were left with nothing but the crushing weight of their own greed and the lifetime knowledge that they had been caught and condemned by the silent, watchful eye of the very mother they had tried so hard to erase.